Coming from the Associated Press. In policy reversal, Trump eliminates help for Black and Latino communities hit harder by pollution. For 4 years, the Environmental Protection Agency made environmental justice one of its biggest priorities, working to improve health conditions in heavily polluted communities, often made up largely of Black, Latino, and low-income Americans. Now that short-lived era is over. President Donald Trump, in his first week, eliminated a team of White House advisors whose job it was to ensure the entire federal government helped communities located near heavy industry, ports, and roadways. Trump eliminated the Justice 40 initiative the Biden administration had created. It required 40% of the benefits from certain environmental programs go to hard-hit communities. Let me remind you, racism is like a bullet. The ricochets can and will hit you. So are you happy with what you voted for? Still? When the government reviews new facilities now, experts say officials are likely to ignore how any pollution they create may exacerbate what communities already experience. Trump's actions will likely halt funds from Biden administration's signature climate law, the Inflation Reduction Act, for climate programs and environmental justice. In making the decision this week, Trump eliminated federal policy dating back to the Clinton era, which had established a government priority of addressing environmental health problems for low-income and minority groups. He also withdrew the nation from the Paris Agreement aimed at combating climate change. You want people to create more babies. But what planet are they supposed to successfully live on? And how are they supposed to make it to adulthood with all this pollution? We're just taking everything back to the 17 and 1800s, aren't we? Ignoring how many children people had and how many of those children made it to adolescence, let alone adulthood, and what the life expectancy was then. But hey, when all you really want are good little worker bees that just do as they told for a gold star and a pizza party, what else really matters? The new administration's moves combine two goals: clawing back what Trump officials say are onerous environmental policies that constrain development, and fighting diversity, equity, and inclusion, according to Joe Lupino Esposito, federal policy chief with the free market law firm Pacific Legal Foundation. We've had this discussion at the Supreme Court and otherwise for many years. Past discrimination is not an excuse for future discrimination, he said, adding that Trump's executive orders allow the law to be enforced without a specific racial tinge to it. Many experts say Biden accomplished more than any previous administration in this area. An EPA-funded study found, for example, that Black people at all income levels are more likely to breathe pollution that causes heart and lung problems. Under Biden, regulators wrote public health rules, tighter air pollution standards, and proposed mandates for harmful lead pipes. The EPA issued the largest ever fine under the Federal Clean Air Act and said it slashed more than 225 million pounds of pollution in overburdened communities. Federal grants went to communities to clean up Superfund sites or buy low-emission school buses. The EPA set up an office to facilitate its substantial environmental justice work. What I'm grappling right now with is both the grief of these losses and the fact that we were on an upward swing, if you will, just weeks ago, said Jay Begay, an indigenous rights and climate organizer in New Mexico. And now, I can't even say he's turning the hands back on the clock. He's taking a sledgehammer to the clock. For years, government support for grassroots environmental justice efforts rose and fell depending on who occupied the White House. Scrappy local groups found ways, sometimes with help from foundations, to get their work done regardless. The Biden administration spent time, attention, and resources on the issue, making it a higher profile and a bigger target, according to Christoph Korchesny, my apologies for any mispronunciations, a law professor and interim director of the Environmental Law Center at the Vermont Law and Graduate School. Environmental justice got swept up into this pitched battle over diversity, equity, and inclusion, Korchesny said. This developed over time into a target of conservative activism. Daniel Gall, an EPA spokesman, said the agency under Trump will work for clean air, land, and water. EPA is working to diligently implement President Trump's executive orders, he said. If you're working to implement, how is Trump working for clean air, land, and water? I don't think those words mean what you think they mean. I really don't. The policy changes diverge from the last time Trump was president. Scott Pruitt, who headed the EPA for part of Trump's first term, once called environmental justice conversations critical to improving environmental and public health outcomes. Trump's new orders are more sweeping, moves that Rena Payan, chief program officer at the Oakland, California nonprofit Justice Outside, called rolling back decades of progress in addressing environmental discrimination. The Trump administration is not only ditching long-standing policies, it is directing agencies to eliminate jobs dedicated to environmental justice and diversity, equity, and inclusion issues, according to a recent memo. Now, how's he supposed to stimulate the economy and get you paid more when he keeps eliminating jobs? And he keeps eliminating the safeguards that a lot of y'all need. They are not limited to the public sphere. The new administration is also looking to remove diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts in the private sector, a step that goes further than some anticipated, according to Julius Redd, an environmental attorney at Beveridge and Diamond, PC. Ann Rolfs, director of the Louisiana Bucket Brigade, which helps communities in the heart of the petrochemical industry, echoed other advocates and said that Biden administration did some great things, but didn't do nearly enough to enforce the law, allowing polluters too much free rein in heavily industrialized Louisiana. Absolutely correct. Now it'll get worse. An already industry-friendly state is likely to let polluters build even more quickly. We just have to buckle up and get ready, she said. That change feels disheartening to Ash Lamont, National Campaigns Director for Honor the Earth, a nonprofit focused on raising awareness and support for environmental issues in Native American communities. We've been spending a lot of time really figuring out what is our next step. What are the things that we can do that will last, despite the administration, and what are the very apparent needs of our community members, she said. Trump's decision to cut off support will hurt, but many of these local organizations will return to operating without federal support, said Peggy Shepard, co-founder and executive director of We Act for Environmental Justice in New York. Advocacy will shift to the state and local level. That might work in some places, but it'll be an uphill battle in Republican-controlled states like Louisiana and Texas, where there's little reception to advocacy, she says. They were finally beginning to get support at the EPA and at the White House, she said, and this is a big step back for the communities who are front line to some of these issues. Most of y'all don't have the money to truly avoid this problem. And the one thing is, we all live on this planet. What say ye now?